On the night of September 26, 2025, in a quiet residential colony in Kottayam, Kerala, a woman sent her last text message at 8:47 p.m. "The atmosphere is extremely tense," she wrote to a friend. "Sam is acting very strangely." Less than 2 hours later, Jessie Sam Gorge would be dead, strangled by the hands of the man she had called her husband for 31 years. But this wasn't a crime of passion. This was something far more chilling. 10 days before he killed her, Sam K. Gorge had driven 60 kilometers from their home to scout it, the perfect place to dump her body. He had taken photographs. He had asked locals about the area, and on that September night, when the security cameras captured his car leaving their home at 11:42 p.m., with Jessie's lifeless body in the trunk, he believed he had committed the perfect murder. He was wrong. To understand how a marriage ends in murder, you have to go back to the beginning. But in the case of Sam and Jessie Gorge, the beginning was already poisoned. They had met in Bengaluru in the early 90s. Sam, an IT professional with ambitions and charm, and Jessie, a woman who perhaps didn't see the warning signs hidden behind his smile. They married in 1994, but their union was never registered, never solemnized in a church. Sam's family opposed the match. Perhaps they knew something Jessie didn't yet understand. You see, Jessie was Sam's second wife. His first wife had left him, taking their child with her. That should have been a red flag. But love, or perhaps hope, has a way of blinding us to the obvious. Over the next 3 decades, Jessie would give Sam 3 children, a daughter who would grow to be 28, and 2 sons, 25 and 23. She would build a life, raise those children, and slowly watch as the man she married revealed himself to be something else entirely. By 2008, the couple was living in Saudi Arabia, where Sam worked in the IT sector. The veneer of their marriage had already begun to crack. Sam had developed a pattern: relationships with foreign women, liaisons he didn't bother to hide. When Jessie questioned him about one of these women, Sam's response was violent and swift. He attacked her, striking her head repeatedly with such force that she spent 2 months on a ventilator, fighting for her life. 2 months. Let that sink in. And yet, there were no serious consequences for Sam. No prosecution, no intervention. The system looked away, and Sam learned a dangerous lesson. He could hurt Jessie, and the world would do nothing. They returned to Kerala, to a 2-story house near the Ratnagiri church in Kanakari village. But they didn't return as a couple. From 2010 onward, they lived on separate floors of the same home. Sam upstairs, Jessie downstairs, trapped in a domestic Cold War that would last 15 years. 15 years of living under the same roof, with a man who had nearly killed her. Can you imagine that? Hearing his footsteps above you every day, knowing what he was capable of, but having nowhere else to go? Because Jessie was trapped. By 2018, their situation had deteriorated so severely that the courts intervened under the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act. The judge recognized Jessie as a victim of abuse and ordered Sam to pay her maintenance, Rs 3.10 lakh. The court mandate formalized what everyone already knew. Sam was dangerous, and Jessie needed protection. But here's the bitter irony. The legal system gave her a piece of paper and some money, but no actual safety. No restraining order. No monitoring. No plan for what would happen if Sam's violence escalated again. And escalate it did, just not in the way anyone expected. Sam didn't attack Jessie physically in those years between 2008 and 2025. Instead, he tortured her psychologically. He enrolled in a postgraduate program in travel and tourism management at MG University in Kottayam. At 59 years old, he became a student again. But it wasn't education he was after. According to later police investigations, Sam used his student status to meet foreign women, spinning elaborate lies, presenting himself as single and available. He would bring these women to the house where Jessie lived, the house she couldn't leave because of the ongoing property disputes, the house that was supposed to be her home. Can you imagine the humiliation? The cruelty of it. Their 3 children had grown up and moved abroad for work, which meant Jessie spent the last 6 months of her life alone on the ground floor of that house, while Sam lived his double life upstairs. She was 59 years old. She had spent 3 decades with this man, and she was trapped in a legal limbo, too many assets tied up in court cases to just walk away, too afraid to stay, but with nowhere to go. By September 2025, 2 things were converging that would seal Jessie's fate. First, there was a court-ordered mediation scheduled for October 30th to settle their property disputes. Sam owned significant assets, 4.5 acres of land, flats in Goa and Kovalam, and he was terrified that the court would rule in Jessie's favor. Second, he had started a relationship with an Iranian woman he'd met during his university studies. He wanted to celebrate Dussehra with her in Mysuru. He wanted his freedom, and Jessie, with her questions, her refusal to disappear, her legal claims to his property, Jessie was in the way. So Sam began to plan. Around September 19th, he took a drive. 60 kilometers from Kanakari, in the remote Idukki district, there's a place called Chepukulam. It's known for its dramatic geography. Gorges that plunge 50 to 60 meters down, hidden within rubber plantations, far from prying eyes. Sam photographed the area. He asked local residents about foot traffic, when people visited, who might see something they shouldn't. He was methodical, calculating. This wasn't rage. This was logistics. September 25th, 2025. The day before Jessie died, Sam made a choice that would push their simmering conflict into a boiling rage. He brought the Iranian woman to their home, to the house where Jessie lived. It was a deliberate provocation, a slap in the face to a woman who had already endured decades of humiliation. And Jessie confronted them. Of course she did. What else could she do? The argument that erupted that day was fierce, neighbors would later tell police. The tension in that house became so thick you could choke on it. The next evening, September 26th, the air in the Kanakari house was electric with unspoken violence. Jessie sat in the sit-out area of their residence as the sun began to set over Kerala. At 8:47 p.m., she picked up her phone and sent those fateful messages to her friends. Her fingers must have trembled as she typed, "The atmosphere is extremely tense. Sam is acting very strangely." Did she know, in that moment, that these would be her last words to the outside world? Did she feel death approaching? Or did she still believe that, somehow, this night would pass like all the others? By all accounts, the argument between them began somewhere around that time. Words became shouts. Shouts became something darker. And then, sometime between 10:30 p.m. and midnight, Sam made his move. He had prepared for this. In his possession was pepper spray, not something you typically keep around unless you're planning to use it. When the moment came, Sam sprayed it directly into Jessie's face. Imagine that moment. The burning sensation, the panic, the inability to see or breathe properly. Jessie would have been disoriented, her hands flying to her face, tears streaming, every instinct screaming danger. And in that vulnerable moment, Sam grabbed her. He dragged her, this woman he'd spent 31 years with, the mother of his children. He dragged her into a bedroom. She might have struggled. She probably did. But weakened by the pepper spray, blinded and choking, what chance did she have? Sam had brought a bath towel with him. Think about that. A bath towel. Something so mundane, so domestic, He pressed it against Jessie's face, over her nose and mouth, and he held it there. Strangulation by smothering isn't quick. It's not like the movies. It takes minutes of sustained pressure, of conscious choice. Sam would have felt her fighting beneath him, felt her body convulsing as it desperately tried to draw breath. He would have heard the muffled sounds, seen her hands clawing at his arms, and he kept pressing, kept holding that towel down until finally, Jessie's body went still. At 11:42 p.m., the CCTV cameras in the residential colony captured Sam's car leaving the premises. Inside the trunk, wrapped in that terrible silence, was Jessie's body. The streets of Kottayam at midnight are mostly empty. The occasional auto rickshaw or late-night traveler, the only witnesses to Sam's journey. He drove carefully, obeying traffic rules, not drawing attention. 60 kilometers stretched ahead of him. 60 kilometers through Kerala's winding roads, past sleeping towns and darkened tea shops. Around 1 a.m. on September 27th, Sam reached Cheppukulam, the place he'd photographed 10 days earlier, the place he'd chosen with such care. The gorge yawned before him in the darkness, a 50-meter drop into shadow and vegetation. There was no moon that night to witness what happened next. Sam opened his trunk, pulled out Jessie's body, and threw her into that abyss like she was garbage. Like 31 years of marriage, 3 children, a lifetime of shared history meant nothing. Her body tumbled down into the rubber plantation below, crashing through branches, coming to rest approximately 30 feet from the road, hidden from casual view. By 2:10 a.m., Sam's car was captured on CCTV again, this time returning to Kanakari from the opposite direction. The cameras didn't lie. They showed the timeline with brutal precision. 3.5 hours round trip, enough time to commit murder. Drive 60 kilometers, dispose of a body, and return home. But Sam had one more thing to do before the night ended. He accessed the home security system, the DVR that recorded everything, and he deleted the footage from 10:30 p.m. to 12:30 a.m., the exact window when he had killed Jessie. Consciousness of guilt, they call it in legal terms. Why delete the footage if you have nothing to hide? September 27th dawned bright and ordinary over Kerala. Sam woke up in his home, alone now, on both floors. He got into his car, the same car that had carried his wife's corpse just hours before, and drove to Kochi. From there, he boarded a bus to Bengaluru. The Iranian woman was with him. They had plans, you see. Plans to celebrate Dussehra in Mysuru, to enjoy the festival like any normal couple on holiday. Sam believed he had gotten away with it. He had covered his tracks, deleted the evidence, dumped the body in a remote gorge that might not be discovered for weeks, maybe months. But he'd forgotten something crucial. He'd forgotten about Jessie's children. They were living abroad, working, building lives in foreign countries, but they stayed connected to their mother. Video calls, text messages, the daily check-ins that bridge continents. On September 27th, when they tried to reach her, there was no answer. They called again and again. Nothing. For children who knew their parents' marriage was a powder keg, who knew the history of violence, this silence was terrifying. The last time they'd spoken to her, everything had seemed fine, or as fine as things could be in that divided house. But now, silence. One of the sons made a final call. It connected briefly, rang for just a few seconds, and then dropped. That single dropped call sent ice water through their veins. Something was catastrophically wrong. The children didn't wait. They contacted a family advocate and relatives in Kerala. By September the 28th, a missing person complaint had been filed with Kottayam police. And that's when the machinery of justice finally lurched into motion, though it was already far too late for Jessie. The investigating officers began with the obvious place, the house in Kanakari. They questioned Sam, who played the role of concerned husband to perfection. He claimed ignorance about Jessie's whereabouts. Maybe she'd gone to visit someone. Maybe she needed some time alone. The officers weren't convinced. There was something off about his demeanor, something too rehearsed in his responses. They expanded their investigation to Sam's vehicle, and that's when the first crack in his perfect plan appeared. Forensic examination revealed bloodstains inside the car. Not much. Sam had tried to clean up, but blood is stubborn. It seeps into upholstery, hides in crevices. The forensic team found it. They also found hair samples that would later be matched to Jessie through DNA analysis. But the real breakthrough came from the digital evidence. We live in an age where our devices betray us, where every movement leaves a digital fingerprint. The CCTV cameras around the colony had captured Sam's car leaving at 11:42 p.m. on September 26th and returning at 2:10 a.m. When investigators checked the timeline, a picture began to emerge. Where does someone go for 3.5 hours in the middle of the night? Then, there was the DVR at the house, the security system that Sam thought he'd successfully wiped. But here's the thing about digital deletion, it leaves evidence of itself. The forensic team could see that footage from 10:30 p.m. to 12:30 a.m. had been deliberately removed. Not corrupted, not lost due to technical failure. Deliberately deleted. Why? What happened during those 2 hours that Sam needed to hide? But perhaps the most damning evidence came from Jessie's mobile phone. When police eventually recovered it, they brought in digital forensics experts. These specialists have tools that can retrieve deleted data, extract location information, rebuild timelines, and what they found was devastating. Jessie's phone had been traveling with Sam's car on the night of September 26th. The geolocation data showed her phone leaving Kanakari at 11:42 p.m., the exact time the CCTV captured Sam's departure. The phone's GPS tracked its journey toward Udumbanur, toward that gorge in Chepukulam. The deleted messages on Jessie's phone told their own story. Her texts to friends throughout that final day grew increasingly anxious. The atmosphere is extremely tense. Sam is acting very strangely. Her fear was documented, time-stamped, preserved in digital amber. And then investigators found something else on Sam's phone. Photographs. Beautiful scenic shots of a gorge in Chepukulam, taken approximately 10 days before Jessie disappeared. Why would Sam visit that remote location and photograph it? Why would he make inquiries with local residents about the area's foot traffic? The answer was chilling in its clarity. Reconnaissance. He had been planning this murder for at least 10 days. On September 30th, armed with this digital evidence and Sam's phone GPS data pinpointing the location, police headed to Chepukulam. It's rough terrain, gorges cutting through rubber plantations, dense vegetation, the kind of place where a body could lie undiscovered for months. The Thodupuja Fire and Rescue Team assisted, navigating the treacherous descent. About 30 feet below the roadside, hidden among the rubber trees, they found her. Jessie's body had begun to decompose in the tropical heat. 4 days she'd lain there, discarded like trash. The police carefully recovered her remains and transported them to Kottayam Medical College Hospital for autopsy. The post-mortem would confirm what investigators already suspected. Jessie had been strangled to death. The method matched Sam's confession that would come later, smothering with a bath towel. While police were piecing together the evidence in Kerala, Sam was in Karnataka, playing it out his fantasy of a freedom. He and the Iranian woman had made their way to Missouri for the Dussehra celebrations. Picture it: festival lights, crowds of people celebrating, traditional music filling the air, and Sam moving through it all, laughing, enjoying himself, as if he hadn't just murdered his wife and thrown her body into a gorge like she was nothing. But the Kerala police were coming. They'd tracked him through phone records, credit card usage, witness statements. On October 3, 2025, officers arrested Sam in Bengaluru. The Iranian woman was detained as well, though she would later be released after investigators confirmed she'd had no knowledge of the crime. She had been another victim of Sam's deceptions, another woman he'd lied to, presenting himself as single and available, when the entire time he was a married man planning murder. The interrogation room is where murderers' carefully constructed facades usually crumble, and Sam was no exception. Faced with the overwhelming digital evidence, the CCTV footage, the geolocation data, the deleted DVR recordings, the photographs of the disposal site taken 10 days before the murder, Sam broke. He confessed. He described how he'd sprayed Jessie with pepper spray, how he'd dragged her to the bedroom while she was disoriented and in pain, how he'd smothered her with a bath towel, pressing it against her face until she stopped moving, how he'd loaded her body into his car trunk, driven to Chappukulam, and dumped her in the gorge, how he'd returned home, deleted the security footage, and then fled to Karnataka the next morning. The confession was detailed, methodical, matching perfectly with the physical and digital evidence. There was no way to deny it, no way to escape what he'd done. Police recovered additional evidence during their investigation with Sam in custody. The car he'd used, parked at a bank on Shastri Road in Kottayam, still contained trace evidence. They found a machete inside, though its role in the crime remains unclear. More significantly, a dive team was deployed to the sprawling water body on the MG University campus, where Sam had admitted to throwing 2 of Jessie's mobile phones. After an intensive hour-and-a-half underwater search, diver Afzal recovered one of the phones, adding another piece to the evidentiary puzzle. The motive, as it emerged from the investigation, was exactly what you'd expect from a man like Sam: property and control. The court mediation, scheduled for October 30th, terrified him. He feared losing the family home, losing his land, losing his flats in tourist destinations. More than that, he feared Jessie's persistent questioning of his lifestyle. She wouldn't accept his infidelities. She wouldn't quietly vacate the house. She represented an obstacle to the life he wanted to live, a life of deception, of multiple relationships, of playing the eligible bachelor while legally married. So he eliminated the obstacle: cold, calculated, premeditated. Jessie's funeral was held in her hometown of Kaipattur in Patanamthitta district. Her 3 children, who had raised the alarm that ultimately solved their mother's murder, had to face the unimaginable reality that their father had killed their mother. The family was destroyed, not just by death, but by betrayal of the deepest kind. Here's what haunts me about the Jessie Gorge case, and what should haunt all of us. This murder was preventable. Every single element of tragedy in this case was visible years before September the 26th, 2025. Tours. In 2008, Sam beat Jessie so severely she spent 2 months on a ventilator. 2 months fighting for her life because her husband attacked her for questioning his infidelity. That should have been the end of the story. That should have resulted in prosecution, imprisonment, a permanent separation enforced by law. Instead, nothing happened. The system shrugged and moved on. In 2018, a court recognized Jessie as a domestic violence victim under the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act. The judge saw the danger, knew Sam was abusive, ordered him to pay maintenance and mandated they live on separate floors. But where was the restraining order? Where was the monitoring? Where was the plan to protect Jessie when Sam's violence escalated again? For 15 years, Jessie lived in that house with her would-be killer upstairs. 15 years of psychological torture as Sam paraded foreign women through their shared home. 15 years of court battles over property. 15 years of warning signs screaming that this situation would end in violence. And no one, not the courts, not the police, not the social services, no one stepped in to truly protect her. The Jessie Gorge case solved itself through the determination of 3 children living thousands of miles away who refused to accept their mother's silence, and through digital evidence that Sam couldn't completely erase. But it shouldn't have had to be solved. Jessie should still be alive. As of now, Sam K. Gorge awaits trial for the murder of his wife. The evidence against him is overwhelming. Confession, digital forensics, physical evidence, motive, and opportunity. Justice, in the legal sense, will likely be served. He will face consequences for what he did on that September night. But justice for Jessie? That ship sailed years ago. It sailed in 2008 when no one prosecuted the man who put her on a ventilator. It sailed in 2018 when the courts gave her a piece of paper instead of real protection. It sailed every single day that the system looked at an abused woman trapped in a house with her abuser and did nothing to truly save her. Jessie Gorge was 49 years old when she died. She had 3 children who loved her. She had friends who worried about her. She had a whole life ahead of her that was stolen by a man who couldn't stand to lose control. Her story is not unique. Across India, across the world, women are trapped in similar situations, caught between violent partners and inadequate legal protections, between financial dependence and physical danger. The question we should all be asking is not just how was this case solved, but how do we prevent the next one? Because somewhere tonight, there's another Jessie sending anxious texts to friends about a tense atmosphere at home. Somewhere tonight, there's another woman trapped on the ground floor while her abuser lives upstairs. Somewhere tonight, there's another murder being planned. And the question is, will we recognize it in time? Or will we once again find ourselves standing over a gorge, looking down at what could have been prevented, wondering why we didn't act when we had the chance?